Welcome back to We Be Kids again. My name's Danny and I'm one of the co-founders at We Be Kids, and I'm also a storyteller, and I've come up in the woods today to tell you a seasonal tale. Now you can see behind me I am surrounded with fallen leaves. The wind is blowing up the hill here and it has a cool chill in it, and they are signs that we are in autumn. And we all know that autumn is a time when all of the deciduous trees drop their leaves. But there are some trees that don't drop their leaves. There are some that don't have leaves at all, they have needles. And that's the pine and the spruce and the fir. And this story that I'm going to tell you about today is a story from a time when all of those trees with needles also used to drop them in the autumn. And this story is from the northern tribes of Russia, and it's about the Tofular Tribe. And this story is called Living Water, or Why the Pine Needles Stay Green. So this story is set in the northern tribes of Russia, and there was a great big tribe called the Tofular Tribe. And the Tofular Tribe were made up of hunters and gatherers. And one day, the snow had been falling and one of the hunters head off across the land in search of food. And he went to a path that he always travelled, but somehow he got lost. And he arrived at the edge of a huge swamp. And he looked around and he thought, no animal can cross this swamp. There is no need to go across it. But his curiosity got the better of him. And he found a way to get across the swamp. And he travelled far to the other side of the swamp and he began to look around. And as he'd said, there didn't seem to be any animals whatsoever. But then off in a tuft of grass, he saw some movement. He got himself ready and he waited. And out of the tuft of grass hopped 7 little rabbits. Now this doesn't seem unusual until you hear that each of the rabbits was wearing a saddle and reins. And the man stood there completely bewildered by this. And then he saw another rustle in the grass and he looked, and out of little holes appeared little people. And they ran forward and they jumped on the backs of the rabbits. And they were no taller than the rabbit when it had its ears up. And they all spotted the hunter and they said, can we ask who you are? And he said, I'm a hunter from the Tofular Tribe. And all together the little people began to laugh. They said, oh, fantastic! We need a hunter. There is a great beast that has been travelling our lands. It has been hunting down our rabbits and killing them. We need a hunter to catch it. And the hunter said, well, I guess I could try and catch it for you. He said, but first tell me who you are. And the little people said, we are the immortal little people of the swamp. We bathe in the living water and it keeps us alive forever. And the hunter was surprised by this. He'd never met an immortal before. And then one of them called out again. He said, if you can catch the beast, we will give you the living water too, and you will live forever. Now the hunter wasn't sure what to do here, but he'd said he would help. So off he went. And he travelled and he looked for prints. Maybe the print of a bear, or a wolf, or a lynx. But the more he searched, all he could find were rabbit prints and rabbit poo. And it began to get dark and the sun was setting and the moon was coming up when the hunter noticed a weasel track. He thought it would be great to catch a weasel and take it back to my tribe. So he set a trap and he waited. And during the night, the curious weasel came out and was caught in the trap. And the hunter grabbed it, And he spent the next morning looking for this beast, but it couldn't be found. So eventually he gave up, and he went back to the place where he had spotted the little people who were riding rabbits. And when he got there, he said to them, "I'm so sorry. I looked everywhere, but I can't find the beast." And the little people said, "But we can smell the beast. We can smell the beast. Are you the beast?" And the hunter thought, and he reached down in it and he pulled out the trap, and there in the trap was the weasel. He said, "Is this your beast?" A weasel, no bigger than a cat. And the people said, "Yes, that's the beast, that's the beast." So the hunter said, "Well, do not worry. I will take the beast across the swamp and it will never bother you again." And the little people thanked the hunter. And they said that they would find him off with the Tofular tribe, and they would bring buckets and buckets of living water. And when they did, the people of the Tofular tribe could drink it and they would live forever. So the hunter turned and he crossed the swamp and he found his way all the way back to his tribe. And when he arrived there, he told everybody about the adventure, about the saddled rabbits and the little people. And he told them that in the coming days they would return with water that would make them immortal. So everybody waited. But the next day nothing happened. And the next week nothing happened. And a month passed and still nothing happened. And people began to wonder if this was just a tall tale and it wasn't true at all. And months went past and the little people never showed up with the living water. Until one day, a group of the Tofular tribe, they were out and they were gathering nuts and berries. And while they were out there, they heard something in the bushes. They all waited, poised to see what would happen. When out of the bushes came the 7 little rabbits with the little people riding on their backs. And they came along and the Tofular tribe saw these little people and they began to laugh. "Look at those little people," they said. Now the little people, they were very, very, very proud, and they did not like being laughed at. And they saw the Tofular tribe laughing at them, and they pulled up their rabbits, and each one of them had a bucket that was full of living water. And they said to each other, "This Tofular tribe are very, very rude. They're not getting the living water. They will not be immortal." And they tipped it all out. But what they didn't notice is they tipped it at the foot of a pine tree, the foot of a fir tree, and the foot of a spruce tree. And that is why, ever since that day, that the fir and the spruce and the pine, they don't drop their needles in the autumn. Because they were given a drink of the living water, their needles live on forever and always remain green. So I hope you enjoyed that story. Little harnessed rabbits and small men and weasels. It's a great story. That story is an old folk tale from Russia. And the Tofular tribe are an actual tribe that used to live in the northern lands of Russia. So it's a fun story. It's a great one for this time of year when we start to see all the deciduous trees dropping their leaves, and it helps us understand a little more about why the evergreens keep their needles. So if this is your first time at We Be Kids, be sure to go over to our website. There are over 60 other stories along with nature activities, nature arts and crafts, and also lots of yoga and mindfulness stuff for you to do to boost your well-being. So thanks for stopping by and watching this story, and we'll see you again sometime soon. Bye!